Hope you all are having a lovely day today. Today, Zach and I are here, and we are going to talk about 5 overrated basketball teams. This is going to be a segment that we call Fives, where we discuss 5 of each category. So, comment below, drop a comment about what we got right, what we got wrong, and what 5 teams or players or coaches or environments you want to see featured next on the list. So this is as of right now. And the first team that is overrated, as you can see on the screen, we think that Michigan State is overrated. Spartans ranked at number 18 right now in the country. Zach, can you detail why you think Michigan State is a little bit overrated?
Yeah, this isn't to say they're not a good team. I think they're definitely a good basketball team. I just think they've I don't want to say they've overperformed. But for me, it's just like I can't get past the severe awfulness from outside the arc on offense. I think they're shooting 28% as a team from three. Some teams are built enough to make up for that. Like very few teams are good enough to make up for that. Now they've done a pretty good job doing that. But in all their bye games, almost every game they play just feels like it's been close. Even like they had that close game against Bowling Green, Western Michigan kind of kept them close. Oakland, like they're pulling away in these games. But the only truly impressive game I think that comes to mind for them is when they beat the brakes off of Nebraska at home, which isn't it's not really a huge resume win or anything. They just look good. Obviously, they're able to win on the road against Ohio State. Like they definitely have the talent. I'm just not sure I can see them sustaining much of it in higher profile games against high level teams and, come March and the Big Ten tournament and the NCAA tournament. It's hard to win in March when you can't shoot the three effectively, at all. Like they have no game from outside the arc. And to be fair, they don't shoot a ton of threes, which at least we don't have to watch them break a bunch of threes. But yeah, it's hard to keep up with some of these, I think they're on track. I think you might agree with this, something for I don't know, 5 seed, something in that range. I'm not so sure they'll be able to keep up with some of those, mid-major teams that should be in that 12 range that love to get up and down and shoot the three and do it really well. Teams like Bradley or McNeese, kind of schools that like to run and gun a little bit. Not run and gun, but shoot the three and have more effective offenses. They are good on the defensive end, but they're not. I wouldn't say they're truly elite on the defensive end to make up for it. So I'm not saying they're not a good team. They're definitely a good team, but I'm just not sure. I don't think the ceiling is too high with them. I'm not sure I see anything more than a round of 32 exit for the Spartans.
Totally agree. Obviously, they got some cohesion. Tom Izzo, of course, the Hall of Famer, so
absolutely
he'll make stuff work. I agree with everything you said. I'm also going to question the talent here a little bit. Their best player is Jaden Akins, who, like you said, pretty much everybody on their team is abysmal from three, who shoots threes consistently. Akins is no exception to that. And yeah, they do have some scrappy defenders, like Cohen Carr is very athletic. Jeremy Fears Jr. and Jace Richardson are all athletic guards. But I also question their talent at the big spot. They play kind of a rotation of Jackson Kohler, Simone Zapala from Longwood, and
Booker gets mixed in there too.
Yeah, Xavier Booker, who just hasn't really lived up to the hype that he got.
No.
Absolutely not. He's averaging 5 points a game on not great efficiency. So, although Michigan State is winning some games, and I expect them to do well in this regular season, especially in the Big Ten that I still think is a little weak, I wouldn't be too high on their ceiling either.
Yeah, and they generally play well at home too, so they'll win a good amount of regular season games for sure.
Sure. Another team that may seem good on the surface, but we think is underrated. Another Big Ten team, the Purdue Boilermakers. Zach,
Mhm.
you brought this one up. Why do you think Purdue is overrated?
Yeah, I mean, this one's not like too world breaking that they just don't really play defense very well.
Yeah.
It's kind of their problem. They haven't looked good at all against teams with a pulse, really, except for Alabama. And I think they played arguably like a perfect game against Alabama, and Alabama played like crap. And that's what it took to win at home against them. I'm not trying to like sound like I'm faulting a win against Alabama, but they do score the ball generally pretty well. They're efficient. They don't play fast, but they're efficient. So they're not going to score a ton of points, but that doesn't mean they're not good at offense. They're very good on offense. They just don't. They take longer to shoot the ball. So their point totals may be lower, but they are efficient on offense. Not great on defense. Against like good teams, they've just had a problem in kind of a shocking way too, a little bit with physicality and rebounding, which we're kind of used to Purdue kind
Right.
of dominating in that sense. But like against A&M, a team that is kind of known for their rebounding, that's kind of all they do. They're not really good at a lot, but they had a lot of troubles with them in pretty much a home court environment in Indy. They got worked by Auburn, another team that's really athletic. Penn State is not. I mean, they were down big against Penn State, but Penn State is a team that is kind of similar to them, but like I think they're honestly more on that level, more so than the upper tier of college basketball. I'm just not very high on this team. Obviously, Braden Smith is a really good player. He's an outstanding player, but I'm just not sure there's enough around him. They shoot the three pretty well, so that's kind of their saving grace right now, and probably what will lead them to a good amount of wins. But if you get any sort of athletic team that's quick and can kind of get up and down the floor or can rebound the ball well, like at those athletic Big 12 SEC teams, they're kind of screwed. So I'm just not a fan at all of this team. I think they'll probably get a biased, 4 or 5 seed, but I don't think they're any better than like in 7 or 8 seed. So yeah.
I agree. I think you could say that about many Big Ten teams.
Yeah.
It's a well-known conference, heralded conference, so they might perform well during the regular season, but I could see them getting outmatched. And I think you hit on the word athleticism.
Yeah.
The Texas A&M game, like you pointed out, showed me all I needed to know, and that Braden Smith was great in that game. In fact, he was outstanding, like you said. He outplayed their 2 guards, Wade Taylor and Zurich Phelps.
Mm-hmm.
But they just got absolutely torched by guys like Pharrell Payne and Solomon Washington.
Yeah.
And I agree. That Alabama game was impressive, but they also played, like you said, a perfect game at home.
Yeah.
So, sorry, Purdue fans. Next up, we got the best coach in college basketball. They lost recently, the other night to Villanova. So they will go down in the standings, but they're currently sitting at number 9 as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
Zach, what kind of diminishes UConn's value for you here?
Yeah. Again, kind of similar to Purdue, but even more emphasized. They are like actually bad on defense. Like not good at all. They're kind of a mess. They just can't get stops. It feels like against teams that like Villanova is a very good offensive team with Dixon, and they got some guys that can shoot it around him. I kind of like Villanova as a whole, and we've talked about them a little bit. But like a team like Providence put up 84 on the road against them. Providence is not good. Providence is a team that put up 59 against Central Connecticut.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like obviously they're great on offense. Not having McNeely definitely hurt them last night, but they got guys that can score the ball, like Solo Ball can shoot the lights out. It's incredible. Caravan, same way, although he kind of choked at the free throw line.
He did. Yeah, he did choke.
Diarra is tough when he's, getting downhill
Yeah.
at the guard spot. Terrace Reed is good enough big on the offensive end. So they have plenty of weapons offensively. They're really, really good. But that defense is just severely concerning, man, because they're a team that they're good on offense, but they like to play slow. A little bit like Purdue. They like to play really slow, but they're usually efficient. So they're shooting high percentages from the field, making their free throws, all that stuff. But the problem with that is if you get down big, it's kind of an issue because they can play fast, but they don't love to play fast. So I don't know. It's just I'm really concerned about this defense, and I'm not sure they're good enough to make up for it like they have been in past years. I think they're probably the most overrated team in the country right now, outside of Tennessee, which we'll get to. Like in terms of AP rankings, I'm not so sure they're even a top 25 team, to be honest with you. I don't think they're that level at all. I think they're, to me, a clear third best team in the Big East right now, and that's not saying much. I don't think they can match up with Marquette or St. John's, to be honest with you right now. I'm just not too high on them. They look, when you watch them, like a team that should be in like a 7-10 or an 8-9 game, but as we know, and to be fair, they do have some nice wins, so they'll have that benefit. But I'm not so sure they're any better than that. But they'll end up obviously getting a high seed because they're UConn, barring any sort of complete collapse.
Agreed. Obviously, they had the meltdown in Maui.
Yes.
But then, they rattle off 3 straight games, win against Baylor, win against Texas, and then win against Gonzaga, where, you start to think, okay, Hurley is back. This team is back. And that really wasn't the case, I don't feel.
No.
The defensive problems are there, and they're glaring. The problems with, they just have, although they do have weapons that are good players, they don't have, a Donovan Clingan down low. Samson Johnson is far away from Donovan Clingan. Don't have like a guy like Jordan Hawkins, who had that crazy run, Adam Sanogo, Tristan Newton.
Yeah, I think they miss Tristan Newton the most.
Yes, they do. I would agree there. And like you said, try to replace him with Aiden Mahaney. And although Mahaney has like good games where he headbutts Coach Hurley and stuff like that, I don't buy him as the point guard.
No, and he's been better as of late, but overall, not been an impressive career so far at UConn.
No. Yeah, UConn, obviously, fans are going to show out. Hurley is going to try his best, but I think they're overrated and due for an ugly exit. We're going to talk about our favorite team, the Tennessee Volunteers. Most overrated team in the country. Let's just be real about that.
By a wide margin.
By a wide margin. Zach, talk about how you kind of figured out that this Tennessee team wasn't all that they were stacked up to be, and maybe talk a little bit about that loss to Florida and what it showed.
Yeah, I didn't really like this team preseason. I didn't like them throughout when they rose to number 1 for no reason whatsoever. And it was a joke that Tennessee was number 1 in the AP poll. Like, I mean, just watch the games. Like, it's so stupid that it's just everybody says they're undefeated. Then why wasn't Oklahoma number 2 last week?
Absolutely.
Like, you know what I mean? So, I'd argue that Oklahoma had just as good wins as Tennessee did.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, it's a complete joke. They're a good basketball team. I'm not so sure they're much like. I think I'd rank them somewhere between 10 and 15 at highest.
Yes.
Look, obviously they're very good on defense, elite on defense, one of the best defensive teams in the country. But that
Mhm.
offense, it gets stagnant. It really does. And
Yes.
look, right now, if you look, in metrics, they might be a little skewed still because yes, they were good against some team like putting up 96 on Syracuse. Like if you watch basketball, you know how bad Syracuse is,
Yes.
especially
Absolutely.
like on the defensive end. They're a mess. But like games like that will kind of skew your metrics in that way. In those games, their offense was really created off of turnovers. And when like against Florida, a team that doesn't really turn the ball over that much and has a very good offense, it was abysmal. They had zero offensive flow. They were lucky to get the 40 points in the game. They didn't look like they belonged on the same court, to be honest with you.
No.
With the team that so I know some people were calling overrated in Florida. I do not agree with that. I think they're
Mhm.
very good. But yeah, I've said it all along. This is look, they'll probably win a lot of games and end up being like a 1 or 2 seed. This is the most obvious round of 32 upset to pick against in terms of a 1 or 2 seed going down. Like if they see a team that has any sort of control on offense, doesn't turn the ball over, as good guards like Florida, as Walter
Yeah.
Clayton, Elijah Martin, guys like that, that can protect the basketball so they don't turn the ball over a lot. They're in trouble because they just cannot create any flow against
No.
any good defense. It's just a complete mess. Look, I watch UC, and the Bearcats are not exactly flying high on the offensive end right now,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
I'd argue Tennessee looks just as bad. That's what it feels like when I watch Tennessee, and it's why like they played a close game throughout with Middle Tennessee like a couple weeks ago. Like that,
Yeah.
Middle Tennessee had a second half lead because when they're not creating turnovers, they can't flow on offense. It's just they don't have enough guys to overcome it. They don't shoot well at all from outside the arc. Like they're not Michigan State levels of bad, but they're not good by any means.
Yeah.
In like for a 1-2 seed standards, they're bad. Yeah, I'm very far out on this Tennessee team. They'll be fine in the regular season. Say goodbye to once you face any sort of high powered offense with a soul on defense. It's over.
Yeah. 100%. You echoed my thoughts. I think that you were right from the start, fading this Tennessee team. Yeah, if you get anything from this video, fade Tennessee. Look, if there are any Tennessee fans watching, we don't dislike you
No.
guys. We don't dislike your fan base. We have a lot of respect for you, but just kind of calling it how it is on the basketball court. This team just is not as good as the media hypes it up to be.
Yeah.
You got people saying, "Oh, they're for sure Final Four contenders." And my question is that what Tennessee did last year was interesting because when I watched Tennessee, I saw when they needed a basket, they would just ISO Dalton Connect and let him go to work.
Yeah.
Is the plan this year to ISO Chaz Lanier and let him go to work whenever they need a bucket in SEC play? If it
Um,
is, then, I mean, good luck because Chaz Lanier is not the same player as Dalton Connect is. He's not as good as Dalton Connect. Good player, can shoot the ball decently well, but he's not.
well, I think in terms of like, I don't know if he can create at the level well, I know he can't create at the level that Dalton Connect could.
Right.
I think they're relying on Zakai Ziegler to kind of
Yeah,
create for him.
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, outside of those two, like they have some nice pieces on like outside of that, maybe on the offensive end, but nothing that can really like makes them a difference maker or anything like that.
Yeah. And Yeah, last thing I kind of have to say about Tennessee is just that Zakai is an interesting player to me. I've loved him throughout his college basketball career. Love his story. Seems like a great dude, but he is just an inefficient basketball player.
Yeah.
And while he's a dog on defense, and all of Tennessee's guys play really hard defense, I mean, he can't get away with shooting like 1 for 13 from the field every single game and
Right.
turning the ball over a bunch. Like that's what he does right
Yeah.
now.
I mean, in KenPom, he has the lowest offensive rating of any of their starting five.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And while some sites have him as a very valuable, like one of the most valuable players to Tennessee, unfortunately, I just don't buy it, and I don't buy Tennessee. And obviously, Rick Barnes is a regular season warrior that
Mm-hmm.
historically hasn't gotten it done in March. So Tennessee, I'm sorry, but you are overrated. Final team that is overrated is the Gonzaga Bulldogs. This is a team that I had high hopes for coming into the year. Zach, why do you think Gonzaga is overrated?
Yeah. To be honest with you, I mean, they just, again, they haven't really done anything against teams of note.
Yeah.
They just haven't been impressive watching them. The only game I was truly impressed outside of that Baylor game to open the year where they, took them to the shed, but
Yeah.
I kind of disregard that. It happened
Right.
literally the opening day of college basketball. Baylor has severely improved since then.
Yeah.
But they had a nice road game against San Diego State. It's always a tough place to play where they were able to kind of control the game against a defense of that caliber. But
Yeah.
I mean, outside of that, I'm not impressed by anything that they can't close games. This isn't that they're not good, but I just don't understand why they're ranked right now. They haven't really done anything.
No.
Um, and some of these early WCC games have been like weirdly close against not good teams. Like last night, for example, I know it wasn't ever really in question, but San Diego's bad. San Diego's like the worst team, and they are the worst team in the WCC probably. Like maybe Portland's worse. But what did Gonzaga win by 11, 13, something like that at home?
Something like that.
Like that's not the Gonzaga we're kind of used to seeing. Pepperdine for their conference opener a week or two ago was a little bit of a mess on the road. Like these are sub 200 schools in any metric. I mean, these are not good teams by any stretch of the imagination. Yes, they're good overall on offense. They're a little bit down shooting the three. They're still fine, but they're only shooting, I think, like 34, 35%, which isn't great. I'm still just waiting. I don't think they've taken that step yet. It's better, but on the defensive end, I think we've been waiting for kind of years for them to be that elite defensive team. They've shown it in spurts. I just haven't seen it enough. Letting teams like Pepperdine and San Diego put up 80 points, and I get it. Gonzaga plays a faster, very fast style, so there's going to be more points scored. But those are teams that you should be able to kind of just completely control on the defensive end, and they're just not doing it. Yes, they're going to run through the WCC again. I'd expect them to maybe lose once and to either like Wazoo or St. Mary's, something like that. But once or twice. But I don't know. They'll be. They're just interesting to me. I just think right now I don't see why they should be ranked. That being said, I do. They're a little different than the teams we talked about so far. I think they could be pretty dangerous come March, though, and maybe as a little bit underseeded than their talent. But as of now, they haven't really tapped into that potential that I think we all know they have. So I'm just kind of waiting for that, and I think right now they're kind of just their rankings are sort of based on that talent, but it's really just not shown yet.
Right. I mean, they're ninth in Ken Palm right now.
Yeah.
And I just don't see that. Obviously, it's a team with a lot of talent, a team that's very hyped up, a team with some good players. Nemhard, EK, Kalis
That's
Battle, all solid guys that you'd like to have on a team. I'm just a little concerned just because they're not going to be getting much better running through competition in the WCC, like you said. A lot of those games are going to be against far inferior opponents. And I feel as if they didn't really show much in the non-conference to make me much of a believer in March. And Gonzaga, the good Gonzaga teams in the past, maybe you can find a couple of outliers, but a lot of them have had like Wooden Award caliber guys. Like I'm thinking of Drew Timmy, of course, was a dog. Thinking of Hachimura, who was an NBA pick. Thinking of Jalen Suggs, who was an NBA pick. Thinking of like Corey Kispert, NBA pick. But I just don't see that on this team. So I think Gonzaga is a little overrated, should not be number 9 in Ken Palm.
Yeah.
So now we're going to move on. This segment is going to be the top 5, not overrated, but underrated basketball teams. Let me just change the banner real quick. We're going to start with Hunter Dickinson and the Kansas Jayhawks. This is one that, Zach, you've been on from the beginning, from the start here. Can you tell me a little bit about Kansas and why people shouldn't jump off the ship yet?
Yeah, it's kind of weird calling Kansas an underrated team right now, but especially considering they're a preseason number 1, and everybody was calling them overrated about 2 weeks ago. Well, after their loss to West Virginia, they're kind of doing it again too. But I think in the long run, that loss to West Virginia is going to end up being a good thing because they look unbelievable since that. I mean, honestly, in the second half of that game, they looked good as well because they went down big and came all the way back. But they look angry the last 2 games. They had a rough first half last night against Arizona State, another team that I like. But they pummeled them in the second. I think ASU had 11 second half points, something insane. When they turn it on, they are still, in my opinion, the best team in the country. I know Auburn is unbelievable, and it's probably fair to criticize me. Right now, Auburn is the best team in the country, no doubt. But when Kansas puts it all together, and they've shown it in the last couple of games, which is the only reason I put them on here. But when they do that, they are, I think, undisputably the best team in the country. I think there was a reason, and a good reason, they were the preseason number 1. That roster is just so deep with guys that can really, really score the basketball and defend at a high level. That's kind of, I think, what separates them. I think they're similar to Duke in that way with the star player, and they're obviously, I think Cooper Flagg's better than Hunter Dickinson, but I think what makes Kansas a little better is they have depth. At all 5 positions, you can slot in a guy off the bench that's the production's barely going to drop off. I think there are some lineup tweaks that maybe Bill Self could implement to maybe make this team flow a little better because they do have some dry spells. But I mean, just watch their game against UCF. They went on the road against not a bad UCF team.
Yes.
And said, fuck it, we are way better than you, and they didn't give them a thing. And they 50-balled them. Do you know how crazy it is to win a road conference game in the Big 12 by 51 points?
Yes, that's insane.
I know it was against, and that's probably a low quad 1 or high quad 2 game. That result might be the most eye-opening result for me this entire year of any game. Because I don't think people understand the magnitude, how hard it is to do that in a conference game on the road against a team that beat you last year. And arguably got maybe a little better this year. That was really impressive. I just think they have so much talent. DeJuan Harris does a really good job kind of controlling the game offensively and defensively. Dickinson, when my only issue with Dickinson is he's not good on defense. He's not good rebounding.
Yeah.
And I will say UCF is a team that really doesn't have an interior presence. They just don't. And they were able to just bully them on the inside. So I think it'll be interesting to see, will they continue to struggle against teams that have bigs? I think their game here in Cincinnati against UC on Saturdays will be fascinating, because that was kind of the story with that matchup last year. Guys like Aziz Bandago was kind of able to control that matchup.
Yeah.
Especially on the glass, got Dickinson in foul trouble because, he's similar height, is able to, bang down low. But there are concerns, but I do think if they're playing like they are the last two games, they are the best team in the country.
Yeah, as a UC fan, I'm very nervous for when Kansas comes around.
Make that two of us.
Yes. I 100% agree with you. Look, if you want to criticize Kansas for losing to West Virginia and losing to Missouri, losing to Creighton, that's fair. You can do that. And I wouldn't blame you if you think that, this is not a very good team that doesn't want it enough. But I will say you're absolutely right. When Kansas turns it on, they're an insanely good basketball team, one of the best in the country, if not the best, like you said. Blitzing UCF was extremely impressive, and then beating Arizona State, which we like on this channel, is also impressive. Look, I think, and you can fade me if you want for the Arkansas take. I get that. It's not looking too good right about now. But I do like this spot that they're in, because Bill Self is not used to being an underdog. Kansas is not used to being underdogs. And I think that's going to kind of fire them up a little bit more, because people are sleeping on them, because they might not have as great of a seed in the tournament, because they've lost some winnable games. And you can't deny the talent. It's undeniable. Kansas is definitely an underrated team. We'll move on to another one that I personally was going to put on my list, but you beat me to the punch. San Diego State. I'll go first on this one. I just really love the Mountain West. I think everyone, if you can, should tune in to Mountain West games. I know it gets late here on the East Coast, but the Mountain West is such a great conference filled with really passionate fans and some really good basketball players. And one of these good kind of hidden talents, he's not so hidden anymore, but I really like Miles Bird. Obviously, he wears the long sleeve undershirt. We love that here. But he's a 6'7" lefty guard, pretty much, who can dribble, shoot, kind of do it all. And he plays under that Brian Dutcher style. And Brian Dutcher is a phenomenal coach. I think he's one of the most underrated coaches in the country. People are saying it's a fluke, and it might be a fluke that they made that run to the national championship, but a national championship run is a national championship run, no matter what.
I don't know if that's a fluke. They beat, the number one overall seed.
Absolutely. Season. No matter how you slice it. But I really like this team. They have some really athletic guys. Nick Boyd is a really underrated player who played for Florida Atlantic, who hasn't really played that amazing this year, but it's obvious when you watch him, he has the talent. And I was just really floored when they went into Boise State, a team that I'm really high on.
Yeah.
And just looked like the better team, straight up. So what do you think about San Diego State?
Yeah, no, that was kind of the eye-opening result for me too. Like, obviously they have an incredible win against Houston, beat up on Creighton. They have a nice win against UC San Diego, team that I think should be talked about way more. But this team, as weird as it sounds, they kind of remind me of that team that went to the national title game.
Yeah.
They're kind of in a similar spot right now as that team was at this time of the year. They don't like they don't jump off the page when you watch them on the offensive end. Neither did that team. I think that team that went to the
Yeah.
final, I think their offense finished in like, I don't know, like 75th to 85, something like that in KenPom. But they had a top 10 defense. And again, this year, I think, let's see, they're at 85 offense and they're eighth in defense. They're just suffocating on the defensive end, man.
Yes.
It just looks so hard to score on them. They don't allow anything.
No.
They don't allow anything at the rim. They block everything. It feels like they shot blockers, athletic guys all over. They like to run a lot of too big lineups with. I'm going to pronounce his name wrong. Guath or whatever.
Yeah. He's really good. I like him a lot.
He's a fun watch on the defensive end, like
yes,
without a doubt. But they like to go him and then Coleman Jones. They kind of, and then they rotate in the freshman Pharaoh Compton, who can play that four. Heidi, I forget his first name. Plays a good amount. I think he was hurt earlier in the year, which kind of like messed up their sort of lineups. But they have a lot of size on the interior. Good luck scoring inside. I actually was watching them last night against a very bad Air Force team. Air Force went up 20-8 in that game. And the final score was 67-38.
My goodness.
It was brutal. I felt bad for Air Force. It was rough. But this team, I mean, they're a lot of fun to watch on the defensive end. They always are. Brian Dutcher is, I think, one of the maybe the most underrated coach in college basketball.
Yes. No, he's insane.
They do everything well on the defensive end. They're not bad on the offensive end. The one thing I would like to see them maybe try to get to the line a little more. They don't get to the line a lot. But you were right. Miles Bird is good. Nick Boyd has been a pretty good piece. To transfer from Florida Atlantic. They just have. They have enough on offense to make up or to be good enough to win against really good teams with how good and dominant their defense is. They're a pleasure to watch for somebody who loves defense like myself.
Absolutely. Great watch.
I think people just kind of forgot about them last year, and there they were again in the Sweet 16. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them there again.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was going to say that's probably the most underrated Sweet 16 run we've seen. I mean, they got there. They ended up losing to UConn, but everybody lost to UConn. So, and then they lose Lamont Butler, Micah Parrish, and Elijah Saunders, who are three of the best players on their new respective teams. Mm-hmm. And being able to bounce back like this, San Diego State's super impressive.
Yeah.
Next one is a team you and I are both pretty passionate about, Houston Cougars. Mm-hmm. If you look at KenPom, you may think that they're not underrated. But if you look at the AP poll, you will see that Houston is a sleeping giant here.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think about Houston, and why do you think they've been underrated to this point, and why do you think they're underrated?
Well, I think the perception is a little off because, and it's fair that they don't have a quad one win yet. And that's pretty much your reason right there. And the thing, they've had 2 overtime losses and like a 5-point loss to what I think is undisputably the best team in the country in Auburn. Overtime loss to Alabama, overtime loss to San Diego State. Very good teams. I wouldn't blink twice. I just would implore people to think about it like this. The ball bounces one way in 2 of those games. They're number 2 in the polls right now.
Yes.
Say they like, even if they lose to Auburn, say they don't go to overtime against Alabama, win that game, and they are able to beat San Diego State. They're sitting at, instead of 11-3, they're 13-1, and with their only loss being to Auburn, I think we're looking at them as the second or third best team in the country, right? that's and you just watching them, they're suffocating on defense. I don't know how. Look, I've seen it over the years, year in and year
Yeah.
out. Unfortunately, having to watch the Bearcats take on that just grueling defense, but it is. Oh my God! Like I don't know how people score against it.
Yeah.
Like it is so hard to get any sort of penetration on them. They like your only shot is jacking up threes and hoping they go in because you're not going to get great looks, but you might get okay looks from three because you are not getting a damn thing at the rim. I
No.
promise you.
No.
Yeah, I think they do foul a little bit, so you can get to the line. I mean, they don't foul a ton, but they used to kind of foul a lot. That was just one thing that was kind of holding them back in the past. Sometimes in some games that were kind of called a little ticky tacky, but yeah. What's crazy for them this year though is they are the second best 3-point shooting team in the country. Like that is horrifying to think about.
Yeah.
If you're any opponent, they're shooting 41% from three. That's ridiculous.
That is ridiculous. Yeah.
And I don't know. They're playing. It's not like they've played bad teams outside of those three losses. They played solid teams, not great teams, but some bubble teams or teams like NIT level teams, and they're just blowing the doors off of them.
Yeah.
They beat BYU by 31 the other day.
Yeah.
And that's a team a lot of people like.
Yeah.
I don't know. They just. I don't know. I honestly don't know if I like. The Iowa State Houston is going to be incredible to watch.
So
I'm going to
good.
be honest. I could see them going like 19-1, 18-2 right now. They're playing unbelievable on the defensive end, on the offensive end. They just look the part. Another incredible Houston team. I might pick them to win it all again.
Yeah.
They do it every year. Yeah.
Every year. Yeah. In a few weeks, I guarantee you're going to go back to this video and Houston's going to be a top 5 team in the polls. They're going to be a 1 seed.
Yeah.
They just because they don't have a quad 1 win right now does not mean that they're not an insanely good team. One guy I want to shout out is JoJo Tugler.
Yeah.
He's developed so much. He's such a good defender, rim protector, whatever you need. He's added a little bit of scoring to his game.
I mean, he's one of the best shot blockers in the country.
Yes.
At 6'8".
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you might criticize them for, not having, obviously LJ Cryer hasn't really performed like as many people thought, but he'll get there. We're only early in the Big 12 season, but I'm going to echo everything you said. Houston is incredible. St. John's, the Red Storm, Rick Pitino's team going into Big East play. What do you think about St. John's, and where can you see them going in the future?
Yeah, another really, really strong defensive team. It's Rick Pitino teams tend to be that way. The reason why I'm really high on them, and I think their ceiling is actually really high, is because they've been pretty good on the offensive end, like good enough. They play pretty fast, so they'll have a lot of higher scoring games, but they play pretty well on the offensive end, but they are horrific shooting the three. They're shooting dead even 30% from three, yet they're still beating good teams. Now I will say they don't have any true marquee wins. They got their best win of the season last time out on the road against Xavier. But they have did that double overtime insane game, lost to Baylor, close loss to Georgia, and then a 1-point loss at Creighton, I think. So they have a couple okay wins, like a 1 or 2 quad 1 wins. But if you watch them, they just they're really talented. Rick Pitino is still, I think, one of the better coaches in America. He knows what he's doing. And I think Kadari Richmond is just starting to maybe scratched the surface of what we all know he can be and do. He's an incredible player. Hadn't really lived up to it so far, but it feels like he's coming around. Zubi Ejiofor, incredible interior presence for them on the offensive end.
Yes.
And the defensive end. RJ Luis or whoever.
Yep. Absolutely. He's great. They're the leading scorer.
Guy. Could be first team All Big East kind of guy. I don't know. They just have a lot of guys that can both defend on ball, block shots, and score as well, especially interior wise on the offensive end. But I think the thing is if they do start shooting the three like at all, look out. I think we could really be seeing one of those teams that makes a very deep run in the NCAA tournament that maybe some people aren't expecting.
Agreed. This isn't a Michigan State situation where they're shooting the three poorly. I feel as if St. John's has potential to get much better shooting the three because they have guys that I think can hit threes. Kadari Richmond, shown he can hit three. RJ Luis has a good shot. Davion Smith, their point guard. Then Simeon Wilshire coming off the bench can shoot the ball a little bit. So when the shots start falling, I honestly picked we scrapped this video because it was a little too late into the season, but I think that St. John's has a good chance of winning the Big East, actually. I think they're one of the more talented teams in the Big East. I think they're right neck and neck with Marquette for the most talented team. This is a team that you kind of introduced me to, Zach, and I watched them the other night play Kentucky and beat Kentucky at home. And that's the Georgia Bulldogs, a team that we don't really know for being good at basketball. Yeah. He's good at basketball this year. Tell us a little bit about what we need to know about Georgia.
Yeah. Funny enough, they beat St. John's team we just talked about. But a really good team on the defensive end. Again, one of those teams that just feels they defend it really well. They defend outside the arc really, like teams aren't ever really shooting threes well against them. And that's kind of Kentucky's thing. It's sort of why they struggled. They were really able to contain the perimeter. But they're okay on the offensive end, but Asa Newell is like, if you want to see like a true, like a center that can score the ball in the post kind of like, and can just really has a good feel for the offensive end. Asa Newell is your guy. They another thing, they're a little bit like Texas A&M. They crash the offensive glass, do a really good job at getting offensive rebounds. They have a lot of length at the guard positions.
Yes.
They're kind of, they got obviously Newell down low, and then like everyone else feels like they're all like in that 6'4", 6'5" range. Like every single one of them. So they have a lot of guys that can play multiple positions, that can handle the ball, but also guard, 1 through 4, get to the glass on both ends. I think I don't know. I just like them a lot. I think they're talented. I've liked them the whole year. I'm glad to see them get that win to maybe open some eyes against Kentucky. I'm not sure why their win against St. John's didn't open eyes.
Yeah.
But I think we've been kind of waiting for maybe that big result, and they're going to get plenty of opportunities in the SEC, obviously. Again, maybe a team that's destined for something like an 8 or 9 seed, but probably not a team you want to see in the round of 32 if you're
absolutely not. Absolutely not. Asa Newell, like you said, is the man. 6'11" freshman who has guard-like skills when it comes to dribbling the ball. He's going to be a great pro one day. Just the length that they had, I really liked. They really disturbed Kentucky, the defensive end, and played good offense against them. So I think Georgia in a stacked SEC is a team that you need to look out for.
Sure.
We're going to go with the 5 best college mid-majors. No, there are teams like Utah State, San Diego State that we really like that are very talented that won't be late making this list, as well as teams like Dayton. We will include a couple of A10 teams on the list, but there are some mid-majors, like you can consider Gonzaga a mid-major that, should make the list. But these are teams that mid-majors that are true mid-majors in a sense. And we'll start off with, Zach, one of your favorite teams that you brought up early in the season that I didn't even know was a school, but now I do, and it's the UC San Diego Tritons.
Yeah.
Zach, what do you see in this team, and what have you liked about them so far?
Yeah. I don't know. They're a fun watch. They just play in the sense that they just play good basketball. They're not particularly nothing jumps off the chart or jumps off the page when you look at charts or metrics, whatever. They have a couple of good wins. They have a really nice win on the road against the Utah State team that is trending towards a 3 or 4 seed with the resume they're putting together. That's a tremendous win that will, maybe who knows if they'll need kind of at-large debate. Obviously, the battle between them and UC Irvine in the Big West will be fantastic. Another team that's right there with them. So I think the loser of that, whoever doesn't make the tournament, especially if it's UCSD, we'll definitely have an argument for an at-large, depending on how the rest of the season goes. But no, let's focus on UCSD. They're, as I said, they're just a well-rounded basketball team. I don't know how to describe it otherwise than that. It feels like they do the little things right because they do. They don't turn the ball over at all. I think I'm pulling up KenPom. They have the third lowest turnover rate, and they also force a lot of turnovers. They're 22nd, and they force the third most turnovers. They force turnovers on 25% of possessions, which is insane. And they also don't turn the ball over much, only turning it over on 14.4% of possessions. So obviously that swing of we know this, if you get more possessions, you win the games.
Right.
So they're stealing possessions from a lot of these teams. They don't play particularly fast, so they'll kind of grind it out against you. They kind of have the recipe for teams those mid-major teams that show up in the Sweet 16 and Elite 8. They really have where they don't. There's nothing because a lot of people love the team that jumps out, maybe the team that shoots an incredibly high number from 3.
Yeah.
Or they have a really good defense, maybe lag on the offensive end, or maybe they're just really good in total offensively, but not as great on defense. South Coast. But this team is just they're pretty good at everything. They just have the feel of a team that can match up with almost anybody you put on the court with them. I'm going to get it right. Aniwaniwa Tate Jones, Australia or New Zealand, something like that, where he's from. He's a little bit like an undersized big, but he makes their offense go. He's incredible offensively inside. He draws so many fouls. He gets to the line a lot. I think he's been to the line 114 times this year, and he shoots at 80% from the line too. So he's just he's like that guy. All these mid-major teams, they have that guy that becomes kind of a hero in March. And I don't know. They have all the pieces for me, and great story too. It's their first year eligible for the tournament. And I think we might see them in it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for bringing this team to our attention. 66th on KenPom is not bad, especially for mid-major in the first year. That's within the first 68. And I think you brought up a great point in that there are a lot of gimmick teams that, maybe just throw up a bunch of threes, that are trendy upset picks. because they can do one thing very, very well. Kind of
Yeah.
similar to like Buckyball last year
Yeah.
with Stanford.
Stanford, yeah.
That was a good team, don't get me wrong, but they kind of had a shtick. But UC San Diego seems to be a very well-rounded team. And I don't know who this man is. This is their coach, but he's done a great job.
Eric Olin.
Eric Olin. Good for you, Eric.
He's been their coach throughout their D1 history, albeit
Awesome.
5 years. But
Awesome.
yeah, one thing please watch on Saturday. They host UC Irvine in what, in my opinion, is the mid-major game of the year. So
absolutely.
that will be fantastic.
Incredible Big West teams.
Yes.
Mid-major game of the year. Go watch. Now we got this. I was searching through X looking to find a picture, and George Washington retweeted this picture. So thought it was kind of funny. But this team is playing like they're presidents of the United States right now. The Revolutionaries. What have you seen out of George Washington? Which kind of
this isn't a team that's going to be high in metrics and stuff, but really just recently they had a really rough loss to open conference play against a bad Richmond team, but they blew the doors off of Dayton and won comfortably on the road against a good Rhode Island team last night. And I don't know, those two results kind of opened my eyes to maybe have something here. They don't have great metrics because, I mean, they don't really do a lot well. They win generally most of their, I mean, they've won all their like bye games, but not by like a ton. So that's why their metrics are down. They don't have really any great wins. But that being said, like, I don't know, going into the year, I was told that there might be something here. Not a lot, but something. The only issue I think with them is they have like no 3-point shooting. They just don't do it.
Yeah.
But they're kind of tough. Like if you watch them, they're tough. They're pretty good on defense. They're definitely like better than their metrics suggest. I think that might be a little skewed. But yeah, like they've looked really good recently, and I think this might be a little bit of recency bias, but who knows? Maybe they're not going to get an at-large bid or anything. They're not going to be the best team in the A10 or even close to it, but this is maybe one of those teams that toughs it out in the A10 tournament. It feels like the A10 tournament every single year produces a bid stealer. Am I wrong?
Absolutely. Yes, you are not wrong.
A lock that if there's an at-large team in the A10, which honestly this year there might not be because Dayton is falling off the face of the earth quickly. There might not be, but if there is a team that is in position that get an at-large bid, it's almost every year that that somebody else wins the tournament. And it's usually one of those teams that's not like really great metrics. Richmond did it a couple years ago. Duquesne did it last year.
Duquesne,
and I think George Washington kind of fits that bill. They're not like anything like super jump off the page, but they're just okay, like pretty well-rounded, kind of tough. They're generally like, I think they are older, at least if I remember from watching them. But yeah, like they could get hot, and I like they kind of fit the bill of like the 6th seed in the A10 tournament that wins it.
Absolutely. Both Richmond and Duquesne winning their first round games in the NCAA tournament as well. George Washington doing a little box score watching. This was not a team that I had on my radar, but I mean, 2 good wins against Dayton and Rhode Island kind of tell you what you need to know about this team. They can win these games against good teams. If you can do that, there's a chance you could find your way into the tournament. So we considered putting Bradley on this list. I know Zach thinks very highly of Bradley. I do too. I like Bradley a lot. And there's a chance that Bradley might take down Drake in their next matchup in Des Moines. But for the time being, because Drake won the other night, we'll give this spot to the Bulldogs. A great story that I've followed from kind of the start once Darian DeVries left Drake to pursue the West Virginia job. They hired Ben McCollum, who was at Northwest Missouri State. Which was kind of a D2 powerhouse.
Yeah.
And he brought over, I think, four of their starters, either 4 or 5 of their starters, including this guy, Bennett Sturts, who hit the game winner against Kansas State a few weeks ago. Were all players at Northwest Missouri State, and they just jumped up to Drake. And despite they've gone on a little skid recently, but a win in Peoria is very good. Tell me what you saw last night and what you've seen from Drake that it's impressed you.
Yeah, no, I was kind of on the Bradley train going into that game. I liked them going into the year. I thought they were like the clear favorite, and they still might be. They're one of those teams that's kind of sexy on paper because they are incredible. They're like one of the best, if not the best, 3-point shooting team in the country. But I'm trying to grow as a college basketball fan in the sense that in the past, like you know this with me and my South Dakota State obsession from 2019. Yeah. I was convinced, or whatever year that was, I was convinced they were going to like the Elite Eight.
But yeah, we all have that. We all have that. I do that sometimes.
That's another story. But no, this Drake team is. I mean, they're sound. They're interesting because they literally are the slowest team in the country. They have the longest offensive possessions of every single team in the country. They are the slowest tempo team. And what that does is it's a double-edged sword because I think it generally keeps you in every game, but it also keeps the other team in every game.
Yeah.
So right. Now that being said, they had a really good non-conference season. They beat some decent teams. Obviously, they didn't lose, so it couldn't be that bad. But they had a rough start to Valley play with losses to UIC and Murray State, I think.
Yeah.
With the Murray State loss coming at home, those aren't like bad teams by any means, but they're not great.
Yeah, absolutely should win. Yeah.
Right. But no, I think you said it pretty well. There's a lot of continuity there, even though it's not like they're not like at Drake before, but they've won at the D2 level. They don't go very deep into the bench. Like Bennett Sturts plays like literally like every game.
Yes.
And so does Mitch Muscari or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like those two guys are like always kind of anchors on the court. So they're not going to be phased by late game scenarios. So if this is a team that ends up in the NCAA tournament, if you're like a 5 seed, maybe there are other teams you wouldn't want to see, but I don't know if I'd want to see Drake just because you're probably going to be in for a sweaty one because
absolutely
they're going to be in that game. Yeah.
That's a great point. I love your point about the tempo. And yeah, just one more fact. I watched the interview on Field of 68 with the Drake guys, and I don't know, just found it interesting. Some of those guys' stories, like Mitch Muscari, literally had like an accounting job like 3 weeks before the season started, and was asked to come back to college basketball by his coach. And I don't know, just an interesting program that always seems to do a job every year. The last two we'll talk about. First, we're going to talk about Washington State, Wazoo. This is one that you also brought on my radar. Wasn't really paying too much attention to them really throughout, but tell me what this Pac-12 team has done so far and what they can do in the future.
Yeah, well, as in their only season as a WCC member, they or is it this year? Is this year and next year? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
But no, yeah, them, and also I think you could throw Oregon State in this category too as a fellow team that's in the same situation that they're in. No, I think they kind of just flew under the radar because people sort of forgot about them. They were good last year. Obviously, they had a lot of turnover, coaching change.
Absolutely.
Kyle Smith off, and then they brought in David Riley, a guy who had not great success, but like decent success at Eastern Washington, a good mid-major
Yeah.
program. Obviously, like kind of a regional hire there too. But no, yeah, they've looked good. They look pretty good in non-conference play. Their only reason, like their metrics are okay. They're 71 in Ken Palm, which isn't bad, but they're a little bit held back because their three losses. They lost pretty big. Like they not to bad teams, but they lost by let's see, 10 to Iowa, 17 to SMU, and 16 to Washington. So all away from home, no home losses. But no, they went on the road, beat a good Nevada team. I think I don't know if it was a true road game, but it was like in Boise against Boise State. They came out with a win. They beat San Francisco the other night. They beat UNI on a neutral court. They beat Bradley earlier in the year. They just have beat some pretty solid teams. And they're just kind of like a decently well-rounded-ish team. They're good on offense, but their only issue is they turn the ball over a lot.
Yeah,
Something
right.
I've noticed. They play really fast, so kind of a contrast to that Drake style we were talking about. And that can kind of create problems for some teams, but it also might play into how other teams play. So that's kind of another double-edged sword. But yeah, they're generally pretty efficient on the offensive end. So don't get fooled by maybe some lower metrics offensively. Maybe if they can clean up those turnovers, it'll really sway. But they've got some good players. They don't. They run like another team that runs a two big lineup, like we were talking about with San Diego State. So yeah, they should be generally like decent on the glass. They're not anything special on the defensive end, but they're certainly not bad. They block a lot of shots. I don't know. This is a team that has an okay resume, and maybe they definitely will be on the bubble. I think just because they're in the WCC, we're kind of forgetting about them. But this I'm looking at it here like this is the resume of a bubble team, so they'll be in the mix.
Absolutely. One thing that I've liked watching Washington State is how they've surprised me a little bit. I was originally very low on this team because just taking a quick glance at them, 4 out of their 5 starters played together at Eastern Washington last year.
Mm-hmm.
And you may think like, okay, what Eastern Washington didn't really do that much. Why are we converting all 4 of their starters from last year into starters from this year? But I think the game changer is Nate Calmes, their point guard. A little bit of a kind of the Wade Taylor build where he shoots some really difficult, unnecessary shots, but plays very hard and is very fun to watch.
No doubt.
So, yeah, keep an eye on Washington State in basketball and football. They always seem to be in the mix. The last team we talk about for today, St. Joe's. This is a team that I threw in kind of on my own volition just because even though, maybe not the results that they've hoped for at this point of the season, Rasheer Fleming is putting on a show every night. He's jumping up NBA draft boards. And Eric Reynolds is still doing his thing. And they have some really solid non-conference games that they've either won or lost. I know they had that win against, was it Texas Tech?
Yep.
They beat Texas Tech, and then
they beat Villanova as well.
Yeah, beat Villanova. Lost a couple close games against 2 solid teams. They played Princeton pretty close, and then Texas close. Obviously, not a good start to A10 conference play. They're 1-2 right now with a tough loss coming to Duquesne, and then another tough loss to St. Louis and your favorite player, Robbie Avila. But I believe in the St. Joe's team, another team kind of similar to George Washington that can maybe hang around, steal a bid in the A10, and go on win a game or 2 in the tournament.
Yeah, no, I think you said it pretty well. Yeah, no, it's not often you see a A10 level team with 2 guys that are on NBA radars or are that level good. So yeah, no, I mean they definitely got what it takes. Obviously, we've seen it in non-conference play; they are capable of beating really good teams. Like I think I watched that entire game when they played Texas Tech, and like they looked like they could play right on that same court with them. I wasn't. They didn't look any worse at all. Yeah, no, they're definitely one of those teams though. It's a little erratic, as you said, and they're going to lose, or they have lost some not so great games. But yeah, like kind of like we talked about with George Washington. I think they kind of fit that mold of the A10 bid stealer that goes on to win a game in the tournament.
Absolutely. And we'll be back soon with some more fives. Hope you enjoyed. If you watched in the end or if you're watching on clips, be sure to leave us a nice comment. Subscription would help, and have a great one.